conservatism dead in Canada? Will people ever wake up to what's coming? Or does it need to get worse before it gets better? Marc Nixon joins me on this special edition of the Political Orphans. What's going on, sir?
Well, I'm excited to be on the show. I just want to say, Nico, when you came out and you came after me, I have to say, I'm on your yeah, I know I'm on your show today because I honestly like you. And I believe that deep down you have the right intentions for Canadians, and your heart's in the right place. So that's why,
I appreciate it because, as I said in the video that I targeted at you and others, I actually have recorded with you in the past, and I already like you. Like, I was very clear in the video. I just don't understand where the disconnect is, because in my opinion, the problem that we're facing is not a left versus right problem. It's a top versus bottom problem. Like, I record every day with a liberal, and you know what I've come to realize over almost a year of recording with a liberal as a Christian conservative is that we have a lot more in common that we don't. Often we will agree, I would say 80% of the time, on the problem. Where we normally disagree is on the solution. We see the end to be a bit different, but we agree that there's a problem. But without that conversation, I would have never realized that we do have a lot in common with the left,
we all have things in common. And I just want to back up my other content creators while we have a chance here. For example, Jasmine Lane. Without Jasmine Lane, by the way, these conservative content creators, I believe, are heroes in my view. And for example, Jasmine Lane, she had the US ambassador on her show, and she was able to literally, from that interview, was able to get all of the retaliatory tariffs removed on food imports. They were tariffing food that was coming in from the United States, adding an additional 25% to all of the food that was coming in. And because of her, we don't have any of these retaliatory food tariffs without that expose. So without her, we'd still be paying 25% more for our fresh produce and all sorts of other things. I see the coffee prices have stabilized. They come down a bit, but they're still way too expensive. And then Moose on the Loose, I mean, he's building out this, he's fact checking, he's building out this data set that it's live. You could just go on, it's the Moose chart, and you could also debunk it or add things to it. So, I mean, these voices, if we didn't have these conservative voices, we'd have CBC. That's it. So, that maybe, we're all trying to do the best we can, and maybe some things that people don't agree with, but without these voices, we have CBC, which is CBC based on what we saw just in the last 24 hours. It's unbelievable.
I'm happy you brought that in. You brought that up because there's a couple of things I want to add to this, because Jasmine Lane did respond to my video as well. And I've had conversations. I've never met her in real life. We've never recorded anything together, but I have had conversations with her. And my issue is not that she doesn't report on, let's say, not Hexet, but the ambassador to Canada from the US, because just as an FYI, her video did so much better than the CBC video that was just 24 hours apart, and they have 10 times her following. So FYI, I respect the work that she does. My issue, and if you go back to the video, that was my whole point, is that the conservatives, and I'm going to air quote, the conservatives in Canada, the content creators that consider themselves conservatives, don't call out Poilievre for the mistakes that he does, and still believe in that left versus right narrative, which is what my biggest gripe is. Because at the end of the day, the number one problem that we're facing in Canada is not being addressed in the mainstream media. So how can, as a Jasmine Lane, for example, when her answer to me on my video is that she covers what's trending, right? Like most people do. I get it. That's how you get a lot of views. That's how you get a lot of the attention. But mainstream media doesn't cover the real issues. So how can you base your content on mainstream when mainstream doesn't cover what needs to cover? And how does that make us any different from the left if all we cover is what they want us to talk about, not what we know we should be talking about? And right now, my content is solely based, like 90% of what I talk is freedom of speech. Everything I do, you can bring it back to freedom of speech. I might not say it out loud, but it's all because I care about freedom of speech. Yet, the content creators out there in Canada will talk about the freedom of speech issues, but will not address it as in it's a death it's a death sentence to Canada. I don't care who you are. If you lose if you get censored, if you lose freedom of speech tomorrow, I don't care that you have a massive audience. You're going to be shut down. So why are we not all talking about this? And that question is not just for the Jasmine Lanes, for the Moose on the Loose, for the Northern Perspective out there, but to Pierre Poilievre himself. If he is the leader of the party that is supposed to be representing me, which it doesn't. I'm too conservative for the conservatives in Canada. I'm closer to a Republican than I would be to a conservative. But that's why so many people are political orphans. That's why we named the show The Political Orphans, because a lot of people are like me looking at our leaders and we're like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Are you guys fucking kidding me? Like, oh, awesome, you're talking about the pipelines. I don't give a fuck about the pipelines right now, because if you take my rights away, if you are able to implement surveillance bills and censorship bills, C2, C8, C9, C12, C16, C63, the new one that's coming. That's 6 bills right there that could destroy Canada as we know it. Plus the gun grab that they just tested in Nova Scotia, and now that they're going to go federal after taking 22 guns. 22 guns! I've had more than that before I started selling them out years ago. I know most of the guys that I know that have guns have a lot more than that. So that's my point, right? It's not that I don't agree with the topics that you guys talk about. It's just that I don't understand why the main focus of all your content is not simply around this, because if we lose it, all the rest doesn't matter. Like, Canada will not be Canada anymore if we don't have, although Bruce Party will argue with me, we don't have free speech in Canada. We have some type of liberty on certain things. We're allowed to say certain things. But if we lose the little bit that we have, guys like you and I will be censored and conversations will not be allowed anymore. That's the point I was making with that video.
Yeah, so I share the same sentiment as you. I can't speak for other content creators. They do their own content, but speaking for myself,
them up, brother.
I love the other conservative comment. I mean, but I'm not here to critique them. I appreciate the efforts that they provide. And, you know, I believe that each person does make a difference. And like you said, I think we align more than what people realize. Just speaking on myself, I completely agree with you with the freedom of speech. Actually, on my channel, I've covered extensively Bill C2, Bill C8, Bill C9, and I continue to cover it. I'm going to do more content on it for sure. What I don't like is that I see the conservatives that they're, you know, trying to change the wording around. Don't change the wording around. Throw the whole thing in the trash. Why are we even talking about this? I want to see them just say this whole thing needs to go into the garbage can. We're not going to even entertain changing any of the wording. Why are we even changing the wording? We already have laws that are in place in Canada. Maybe they should start enforcing the laws that we already have. That would already be a start, in my opinion. I mean, we already have stuff. You said a lot of things there, so I had a lot of things that I wanted to add here. But
go for it, man.
The thing is if you look at the situation that we're in right now, it's starting to become apparent that what democracy? What like, even if you support conservatism, what democracy? We're seeing people that were partying, having a great time, doing a gift exchange, saying that they love the party, and then just literally 6 days ago did a speech in the House of Commons saying that the Liberals our deficit is causing 2 million people on the food bank and all of this devastation, and then partied with the Conservatives, and 24 hours later just walk across and become a Liberal. I'm sorry, but this is mind blasting. I don't understand how somebody was elected as a conservative to represent conservative values would just and then party with them and 24 hours show up to the next party.
Yeah, and you're talking about Michael Ma, obviously, that that crossed over to the Liberals yesterday. That's the second one since Chris d'Entremont did the same at the beginning of November. And then there's another MP, I don't remember what his name is, was supposed to cross over, didn't cross over. He just stopped being a conservative, but he's not a liberal. But, you know, the issue that I see here, since you're bringing that up, it's something I wanted to talk about. But the problem that I see here is that we are looking at a majority. We're looking at the first time in the history of Canadian history where a government that has a minority government is going to get a majority government, not by election, but by stealing it, by getting people to go to his party. Because let's call a spade a spade. This is not a change in ideology. Fuck you, I don't believe this shit for a second. The best case scenario, it's a bribe. The best case scenario, Ma wants something that Carney can offer. The worst case scenario, Carney has something on Ma and he made him do the move. Or even worse, people are reporting that 3 days ago he was meeting with the CPP. So, and he is Chinese. So there's a lot of rumors that are flying around as to why he did it. And you look at a guy like Sam Cooper, does a lot of content around the problematic between Canada and the Chinese Communist Party. And considering that we have a lot of Chinese here in Canada, it wouldn't be that far-fetched to believe that some of them are infiltrators. And the RCMP has talked about this before, that we do have a problem here. It has been brought up in the House of Commons, but it's just being left there. Nobody else talks about it. So
I just want to say, this floor crossing thing is not new. It's happened in the past. But 100%. The problem is today, with how many of these censorship laws and all of these things that are so crucial to the democracy of our country and having freedom and freedom of speech, everything is on the line here. This is our country. So for them to be crossing at this exact moment in history to form potentially a majority after 10 years of having liberal and then having this happen, this could be the end.
Yeah. No, but it is. To me, it is the end because he's one seat away. I just published a video this morning where I was showing a video that Marc Carney released last month where he was actually inviting people in the audience to call their MPs if they weren't liberals and to join the Liberal Party. So not only do we have a prime minister that is outright calling citizens to have their MP walk the floor, but we have a prime minister that is going to get majority. I called it out last month. As soon as I saw d'Entremont, I'm like, it's a matter of time before there's going to be another one. Give it 6 months. There's going to be another one, and then there's going to be another one. He's one seat away right now. Just one. One seat away from getting the majority. And if he gets that majority, not if, when he gets that majority, C2, C8, C9, C12, C16, and the new C63 are going to pass no problem, because nobody's
What about
C15?
There. What about C15?
C15 is another problem. That's for the people that don't know. That's the bill related. That's the bill they're saying they're trying to implement the policies of the 2025 budget, which in there he gives ministers the access to prevent anybody they like. So individuals, corporations, do not have to respect the law as long as they're not breaking the criminal code up to 6 years. I know that's another thing I covered. But the point in the matter is that however you look at it, if you're the average Canadian out there that knows that's something wrong and you still believe in the voting system, I don't. I'm that much of a pessimist. I believe George Carlin, what he said decades ago, that if voting actually mattered, they wouldn't let us do it. I'm a big fan of George Carlin, and I agree with that. To me, it's just bread and circuses for the masses. That's why I'm always saying it's not a left versus right problem. It's a top versus bottom problem. But how can people still believe that we have an opposition party in Canada when we have a leader in Pierre Poilievre that doesn't have the stones, doesn't have the balls to address censorship every single day? He spends more time talking about the MOU and the pipelines for Alberta, which is important. I believe in Albertan separation. Frankly, if I was them, I'd want to separate too. But if we don't have free speech, it doesn't really matter. If Bill C2, C8, C9, C12, C16, C15, C63 pass, we're fucked. But why is he not talking about this day in, day out? That's all I talk about. Why is he any different? Because that's all that matters. If there's no free speech, there's no Canada.
No, I agree with you. And actually, when Pierre Poilievre was doing really well in the polling and Canadians really liked him, is when his main message and focus was freedom. Yep. When he talked about freedom, people loved that. The freest country on planet Earth. I don't know why he moved away from that. I'm glad that he replaced his campaign manager. I don't know what's going on in the background with this new campaign manager. I think it's only been a few weeks, so maybe there's going to be new messaging coming out. Hopefully he's watching this podcast so that we could start hearing about protecting our freedom of speech and all of these bills. But you know, what worries me is, like you said, there's only one more person that could cross the floor, but there's also Terrebonne, right? I mean, that's still up in air, so that could be two. They might still need two.
You're talking Terrebonne. That's a riding that's super close to here, but it's been shut down. They're not going to happen. Election Canada was pretty clear last time I went to court that they will not change the result. They will.
What
not.
about what about the Quebec one?
That's the one, Terrebonne.
Oh, okay.
That's right next to me. I'm in Montreal, so it's super close to where I am right now. And that's something I extensively covered. And for the people that don't know, there's the Liberal won by one single vote. Out of like 60,000 people that voted, they won by one vote. It went to the Bloc Québécois girl first, then it went to the Liberal. They appealed it, and it turns out that Election Canada made mistakes on the letters that were shipped for the citizens to vote by anticipation. The postal code was wrong, so many different, they won't give us an exact number, but there's more than one. I've seen at least 12 different cases, if I remember correctly, that were identified, that complained. So that would have changed the complete election. That would have given the election to the Bloc, but they refused to change it, and so it stays for the Liberal. And that is just one of the many instances where the fuck is Pierre Poilievre? Why is he not talking about this? As in, do you need more proof that our elections don't matter? Because not every vote is the same. You know what George Orwell said in Animal Farms? All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. That's what Election Canada proved right there. All votes matter, but some votes matter more than others. Yet he never addressed it. There's no politicians that are. I'm ripping into Pierre Poilievre because he is the leader of the party. He is the leader of the party that should represent my values, which he doesn't. He doesn't, and he doesn't talk about what matters, because that's a great example. Can you still have faith in Election Canada when they openly made a mistake, will not take the steps necessary to rectify that mistake and say, you know what, we're going to leave the result as is? Can you imagine being able to do that at your job? It makes no sense. I made a stupid mistake that changes everything, but you know what? Fuck you, boss. I don't give a fuck. I'm not changing it. That's your problem, not mine. We're just going to leave it as is. That's Election Canada. So how can you have faith in their election system? And, you know, here's a question for you, because that's something I wanted to ask you too. Talking about elections, as much as on, don't quote me on the date, I think it was November 17th that they finally voted. The last vote on the federal budget was, like on the Liberal budget, was on November 17th or November 18th. It's either or. But on November 7th, the Bloc presented amendments to the bill, to the budget. The NDP voted in favor of the amendments, so did the Green. So all the Conservative had to do is to vote in favor of the amendments, and our government would have fallen. We would have had a Christmas election, Bill C2, C8, C9, C12, C15, C16. Well, C15 wouldn't have existed. C16 wouldn't have been tabled. They would have all gone removed. They would have had to go again at it if they want Parliament resumes. Why didn't Pierre Poilievre take the election? Yet he voted in favor of the Liberals. He saved. The only reason we still have a Liberal government in Canada right now is because of Pierre Poilievre. He had the power to change that, chose not to. Went on the speech of Canadians don't need an what was it? They don't need a expensive election. They want an affordable budget. It's not expensive, it's something else. But the point in the matter is that he had the chance to do something about it, chose not to, then 10 days later acted in the House of Commons like, we're going to vote against the budget. Motherfucker, please. You had the chance to do it 10 days ago and change the future of Canada. You chose not to. Now you're acting. Why? Why are we not calling him up on that?
Well, what I wonder is how they're feeling today, knowing that there was I think they didn't know about another floor crosser. I think they thought it was done because they thought, and we heard about CBC as well. They said if there was any more floor crossers, they would have crossed at the budget day. So they were probably confident that that everything was shaken out. And to see the floor crosser today, they're probably looking back on that opportunity to take down the government and saying, ooh, we should have probably done that. Right?
You have a lot more faith than I do, man. You have a lot more faith than I do.
No, but the thing is that, you know, there is strategy here. They probably looked at it and said, if we go to an election based on the polling, I guess they believe the polling. They're like, we're gonna get decimated, you know, based on the polling. Actually, I saw something today. It showed that Pierre Poilievre, from his own base, went from 68% down to 58%. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in January. You know, I'm trying to get out there actually so that I'll be able to report on it on my channel, be on the ground and see what's being said. So that's going to be important for viewers. So I haven't booked it yet because I still have to get confirmation. I'm trying to get a media pass. Sure. So that I can be boots on the ground, hear what the strategy is, see what's happening in the background. But as for, you know, I mean, personally, this is personal. I have no idea what they're doing at the Conservative headquarters. I'm an independent content creator. So personally, I would have liked to take my chances and go to an election for Christmas. That's my own thought. I mean, you know, if you could stand on your policies and stand on, you know, say, hey, we're trying to make life more affordable. And that's the number one problem in Canada right now is people can't afford to eat food. So you run on that and promise to deliver on the pipelines because we know the Liberals are they're not going to be able to deliver on anything. Look at the last 10 years. They haven't been able to deliver on anything that relates to prosperity. What I don't understand is the public. The public should be looking and saying, you know, nowhere do the Liberals say that they're going to make us all rich. Where have they said that? They've all said they're going to get us to net zero. I've heard that every single day. But with the net zero, we're also going to make you rich and net zero. Like they don't say that. They say we're going to get us to net zero and competitiveness and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, net zero represents zero economy, in my opinion.
But again, that's the Liberals are going to say whatever they need to say. They're going to blame the bad orange men to the south for 11 years now of terrible Liberal policies that have decimated our economy. They will chase after a $6 billion deal over 5 years instead of sitting down with Donald Trump to make sure that a $600 billion a year trade deal continues. So they're just smoke and mirrors, and the Liberals, the boomers, especially the boomers, because let's be honest, it's the people above 65 years old that have not been hurt by the economy yet that keep on voting for the Liberals if you look at the exit polls. But at the same time, you can blame them all you want, but our Conservative Party is not doing much either. They're not calling this stuff out the way that it should. Saying it every now and then is not the way it works. You know as well as I do how content creation works, how marketing works. Pick 2, 3, 4 things that you talk about all the fucking time, and everything that you do, you bring it back to that. You use what people are talking about to say, hey guys, yes, this is happening, but this is what it's really about. Why can I know this after 10, 20 years in sales and high-end sales, but people with massive teams and millions of dollars behind those teams cannot figure that out? All Poilievre has to say right now, if he had the balls, because that's the first thing he doesn't have. He doesn't have the courage to do it. That's his biggest problem. He's not a leader. He is not a leader. He's not a courageous guy. But let's say that he did. All he has to speak about free speech, the fact that Marc Carney's corrupt as shit, that even the ethic commissioner this week came out saying that Marc Carney's future earnings are directly attached to how well Brookfield does. And for the people out there, Brookfield has gained 33% in the values of their shares since Marc Carney became the prime minister. And that I looked last month. It's probably better right now. But the point is that he could talk about free speech, he could talk about corruption, and he could talk about the price of living. That's it. He could hammer those three down, and that would be the end of it. That's all he needs to speak about, yet he doesn't do it. I know the stats. It's 25% of Canadians right now that are food insecure. 25% of Canadians, not 25.5% of household. 25% of Canadian citizens are hurting to afford food. Some of them have to pay to skip meals in order to pay their fucking rent. This is what we're talking about. And then you see our leaders partying, having fun, talking about going on break. Why the fuck are they going on break right now for the next 6 weeks?
Well,
like, why are they on break?
They've been on break all year, haven't they? It's like 25
it's like
days
70
in the House of Commons.
Yeah, it's 75, if I'm not mistaken. I just looked at it. It was somewhere around 70 when they should have sat 135 at a minimum, which 135 is not enough in the first place. But the point in the matter is that we don't have an opposition party in Canada. We don't have a leader that has the balls to call the things that needs to be talked about. And to go back to the reason you're here, to the video that I did last week, that I made last week, the people like me that are responsible for keeping them accountable or not. That's my biggest gripe. Like, I can't control what Pierre Poilievre does, but I can definitely call him out every single time I get to say, people, wake up. That guy does not care about you. You agreed that he used politics in order not to go for an actual election down on November 7th. He knew that it wasn't a good chance for them to actually get a majority, and he would have probably lost seats. But if we agree that the main problem that we're facing is that we are losing our freedoms, we are literally, people don't realize, if you've read 1984, George Orwell doesn't explain how they got there. We just know they're there. Right now, as we speak, we are seeing how you end up in a dystopian environment like 1984. We're seeing it right now. Communism, this is what we're seeing. Yet, the leader of the opposition is not hammering this down, would rather wait on an election instead of doing the right thing for Canada. He could reshape his messaging. If I can message this shit day in, day out, imagine if I had millions of dollars behind my marketing. Imagine. I'm a one-man team. Imagine if I wasn't. Every Canadian would fucking know that there's a problem with the corruption with Marc Carney, that we have a problem with free speech, and that Canadians are fucking suffering because they can't afford to fucking buy food. When 10 years ago, that was not a problem. What's the difference? Liberal fucking policies. Done. Not that hard.
Yeah, I think the way that we could get back to a winning strategy with just go back to common sense. I'd like to see our politicians speak to the public, speak to content creators like yourself or myself, because then they could start learning, because it feels like they're not looking at the messaging on the ground, and they're a few months late on everything. They're not live. Like, this is what's going on. If they were actually looking at, for example, that moose chart, if Pierre Poilievre took the moose chart, that he would be able to dismantle the Liberals overnight. And we try to push it out there so everybody could see it, and we push it to the Conservatives. Hey, look at this chart. Just get somebody on your staffer to take a look at the moose chart. Bring it to the House of Commons. Make the Liberals dispute every single line item. Basically, if they were bringing us on so that we could speak and have a Discord, and then they could justify their decision making, that would go a long way. I don't know if you saw, but I had an opportunity to sit down with Danielle Smith. I released the footage this morning, and that was real. Like, first off, she said, she's like, do you want to talk about pipelines? Like, when she first saw me come out, I said, no, I don't care about pipelines. She was like, what the hell? What are we going to sit here and talk about then if it's not pipelines? She has all of her, talking points. She's well rehearsed. She knows what she's going to say for every topic. But I said, no, I want to sit here. This is my opportunity to be, find out about you. I want to know about you. And so she was at first going, shoot, no one's ever done that. No one cares about me. They want to know what my policies are. But who cares about the policies if we don't know who's behind the policies? Who's this person, right? So I used the opportunity to find out about her. So that was really well done. I encourage people to go take a look at it. But I'd like to see this for all politicians. Sit down with people from the public, common sense people, any people. I want to hear, that's real, just asking real questions. And none of the CBC scripted stuff and they already know the answers. That's why nobody's paying attention either. You go to CBC and they're just talking their talking points. There's nothing real. We need real to come back. And I hear you. It's really discouraging, Nico. And I mean, we're on the same page with the problem. Like, free speech is nothing comes back. Plus, if we start losing this stuff, just look at 9/11 when they started. Before 9/11, you could go on a plane. There'd be no metal detectors, no nothing. You just walk right onto a plane. And there was very little problems. There was no issues. And then as soon as that happened, they put on the security on the metal detectors. I mean, really, that was just for the public to start, going through. They never removed any of that stuff. So anytime they start putting new things on, they never go away. And it doesn't matter who's in politics, what side gets elected. These things are forever. So that's what's concerning to me.
I'm going to go back to what you said about the Moose chart, because I know the Moose chart. I follow Moose on the loose, not because I agree with his opinion, just because he's very researched. Like, that dude is very solid on his research, and nobody can take that away from him. But he is still one of them guys that will not talk against Pierre Poilievre. And you know why they're not talking about his Moose chart is because Pierre Poilievre and Daniel Smith are part of the problem. They're not the solution. If you dig long enough, you will realize that they are part of the same team as Marc Carney. Look at the MOU. The only reason people are not destroying Daniel Smith on their content is that they did not really read the MOU. Because if you read the MOU and you're somewhat familiar with the WEF Net Zero 2050 agenda, the first line after the intro speaks about attaining the Net Zero 2050 plan. It is literally word for word the WEF agenda. And I don't care that the MOU is non-legally binding, that it's not worth the toilet paper I wipe my ass with. The fact of the matter is that it shows intentions.
I just want to say one thing. I just want to say one thing. So this floor crosser situation is quite interesting in my opinion, because maybe Danielle Smith already knew that was a possibility. And if there's another floor crosser and we have a majority liberal, what do you think is going to happen to Alberta? Because this MOU fired up the separatist movement in Alberta. People are pissed. So, and if there's a floor crosser and then they get a majority, just in my opinion, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there that, could something happen from all this, right? Is that the future? If something does happen, I might be becoming Albertan, by the way. I'm going to join them.
You think she's playing 5D chess? I don't.
No, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I'm just putting it out there that, think about that. Like another floor. I'm just talking about the public. I'm not talking about for her. She did this, and I mean, maybe her intent was to unite Albertans with Canada. Look, we get a pipeline, we get removal of all these restrictions. We could actually start getting investment back into, and if it doesn't work out, let's have a referendum and we'll separate, right? I mean, that's how she's a people, like if the people want to separate, then that's what she's going to do. But her mandate right now is to unify Canada, and that's what she has. Eventually, I believe she's already been since 2022, so she's only got 1 year left. She's going to have to go back to the polls eventually, so I don't know what's going to happen there. But all I have to say is, with this floor crosser situation, this is new information. I mean, Albertans might be looking at the floor crossing situation and be like, it's time, guys. It's time to do something. Well, I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, but I record with a lot of Albertans, and the separatist movement in Alberta is warranted. I understand it. I fully understand it. I support it 100%, and I'm not from Alberta at all. But What Daniel Smith did was spitting in the face of Albertans, because there's no way. Do you realize that with the stats that she put in the MOU, the $130 a ton carbon tax?
No,
literally
I'm just going to tell you that I first of all, I don't have insider information. I have no idea what's happening, and I don't know what they're negotiating. On my side, if you watch my content, I'm not supportive of net zero at all. I think that CO2's plant food, and
sure.
If you look at China or other countries that are leading the way in CO2, they should be the first ones to make a difference. Canada represents 1.5% of total global emissions, and we have the second largest forest on planet Earth. And if we actually cared about climate change, we would not have moved away from the 2 billion trees they promised. That right there was like, oh, they're removing the trees. The trees are carbon sink. Like that. And then, you know, they would, there's so many things that we could do. Like, for example, I believe we only have 33 water bombers. We'd buy 500 of them. We'd actually be building factories to create these water bombers. We have the technology. It's in Calgary. We would ramp that up, invest projects of national interest to create 500 of those in the next 5 years, so 100 per year. And as without even a fire, what we would do is use those planes, go into the lakes. We see that it's red alert, like the fire danger is on red, and we just start watering the forest with the planes. Bomb the whole forest. Make it. Put water on it. We clean the forest. We don't clean any of the forest. So to me, it's nothing to do with climate change. It has everything to do with, look, we got this problem, and then they could abstract as much money as possible for their solution, and they're all invested in all this stuff. So we know this.
But that's the point I'm trying to make. The MOU proved that Daniel Smith's on board with the green agenda. I don't care that it's not legally binding. The fact that you agreed to sign it shows your intentions. And if you look at what's going on in the UK right now, they're talking about having carbon footprint limitation on the individual. Oh, sorry, you ate too much meat this week. You do have money in your account, but unfortunately for you, you can't buy red meat because the carbon footprint of red meat is too high. This is what this is all about. The green agenda is all about controlling the individual and for us to eat bugs. You think it's a coincidence that Health Canada tried to pass clone meats without labeling, without telling us? It took the food professor for him to talk about it. You think that the next step is not clone food, like not clone food, lab grown food that is 100% synthetic, that has been made from nothing, and those companies already exist. I speak about them on my show. So my point is that all the leaders that we have are all on board with this. If you look at it's not the liberals that brought in the Paris Accord, it was the Conservatives under Harper that were okay with this. So technically, Pierre Poilievre is okay. He was part of that. He was part of the Harper government. He was okay.
Agree.
He was okay with that.
I just have to say, like, yes, they did that, but we're in a different place now. Like our country is collapsing. We have before it wasn't like that. So I would say this is a good time to pivot. You know, like I understand what you're saying, but you know, like we can't do this right now. It's not going to end well. We're already, like you said, 25% of the population's has food insecurity. We're seeing, you know, hope from our youth. You know what was very discouraging is like 44% of our youth under 25 voted in the last election. They could have actually changed this direction of our country. It's so discouraging to know that the youth didn't show up. They didn't take a break, or they didn't go and make a difference. So that to me needs to change in the future. We need the youth to wake up and they need to be front and center. The youth is the reason that I make my content, because I care about them. I'm already old. I mean, I'm old. The youth we're handing the country to the youth. They should be the ones that are stepping up. And I'm trying to wake up the youth, to be honest with you.
So we covered the fact you brought up Terrebonne earlier, the writing in just outside of Montreal that Election Canada refuses to review the mistake that they made and have a by-election. So just that shows us that our elections are not solid. They can be controlled. Clearly, they're being controlled right there. Is it intentional? Is it not intentional? I don't care. The fact of the matter is that our elections are not foolproof. And how is telling our youth to vote for somebody that calls himself a conservative that is not a conservative going to help us get better? Because I don't think we can vote ourselves out of the situation in which we are in. I don't know what more it's going to take for people to realize that our elections are compromised. Election Canada showed it during the last election. And we have a leader in the opposition leader that is Pierre Poilievre that's not ready to stand up to the right things and even call an election when that's the only time he will have. Because there's no more calling elections now.
Well, I look forward to your solution, Nico, because I'm all about learning. That's why.
You know what the solution is? The solution sucks. Unfortunately, the solution sucks. If you look at history, you know when people learn? When it is personal. And right now, the average Canadian is not suffering enough. It's going to have to get worse before it gets better. The problem that we're facing right now that scares the living shit out of me are digital IDs. Those are the problem, because once that to me is the line in the sand that we cannot cross. If we accept digital IDs to rule us, we are screwed, because they will. You made a post about this week. I was talking about it on my show yesterday about how the EU and Canada signed the MOU, a digital ID MOU, an AI MOU to work on a framework to put in place digital IDs that could be used cross-border. So this is just a matter of time.
Do you have that post?
Yeah, I have it in my notes. But the point I'm trying to make is that we have that coming. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody in Parliament is talking about this when we have Evan Solomon, the AI minister, a guy that used to be a fucking mainstream broadcaster, responsible for technology that he has no fucking clue about. And he is the minister of AI, and he's the one talking about digital IDs. Are you serious?
He's just taking orders. He's taking orders. I have to say, like, I broke the story. It's almost at 300,000 views. And this should terrify everybody, because Marc Carney in August said that we're not doing digital ID. It's not on his radar. Well, that was a lie, because now we find out that they've been working on it. And I believe that they've been working on it before Marc Carney. Well, Marc Carney's been in the picture for the last 5 years. So, but Justin Trudeau, like they were already working. That's why he went to Europe and he was talking about, AI. Remember that when he was it in Ukraine or wherever? And he was talking about AI. That was earlier this year, actually.
They've been working on it since 2021, 2022. You can go on their website right now and go digital IDs. You will find references on the Government of Canada website where they refer the framework that they had put in place for vaccination passports that would be cross-border. So the framework is already there. They've already been working on it for a while.
Nico, I think what would be valuable to the audience is if you talked about what it means, like the risk to the public. Like, what are the risks, right?
You reposted, I was looking at your timeline earlier, and you reposted a video. I cannot remember what her name is. Very, very nerdy looking girl. And she always talks about digital IDs. She is probably the best I have ever seen at breaking it down. She is phenomenal at what she does. She is so researched. What's her name again? Because I want to encourage people to go watch her stuff, because that woman is a beast. Absolutely love that woman.
You know what? I forget her name, but where I get those clips from and I share it, I'll have to look it up. But
I'll find it. And
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's why I share it, because I try to articulate where my strengths are. Is I'm a data-driven person. When I like to go deep and look at data, I like to read things. I'm a visual learner. My communication skills, I'm working on it every single day. Obviously, that's why I enjoy doing these podcasts, because I'm trying to get better. I mean, that's the whole point.
Webb.
But yeah, Whitney Webb. That's right. Yeah.
I got some phenomenal listeners. I got to tell you, the people that follow the show are absolutely brilliant. They watch the same stuff we look at. But to answer your question, what's wrong with this? You know, just like communism sounds like a great fucking thing when you just look at it on paper and you remove.
When I said that, I'm not supportive. I'm against.
I'm saying. I know. I like to play devil's advocate. I like to play devil's advocate. All I'm saying is, on paper, communism sounds like a great idea. But once you start putting human nature into the fold, you understand why over 100 million people were killed under communism in the 20th century. Because you're basically giving all the power to control everybody's life to a very few amount of people. And guess what they do? They love power. And if you don't like them, they will kill you for it. So this is communism. But digital ID is no different. If you hear the term digital ID, and Daniel Smith has spoken about implementing a digital ID in Alberta, when you listen to what politicians have to say, you're like, oh, okay, cool. That could make sense. You know, it would make my life easier. I don't have to carry as many IDs in my pocket, or I can have the app on my phone. Everybody has their phone. They're going to forget their wallets before they forget their phone. So if you just take it from a non-questionable part, you just like, oh, you know what, it's not bad, okay, it sounds great. But once you start understanding that, look at what's going on in Australia right now, being the perfect example. They just banned social media for anybody under the age of 16. People are like, oh yeah, great, awesome, kids should not be on social media.
No,
okay.
I'm not like it's awesome. That's
no
because where are the parents? Where are the parents?
Exactly. But the part that people don't understand is that in order to implement social media restrictions on people below the age of 16, that means that 100% of the people need to prove that they're over 16. So now you need to provide data. You need to provide a government approved piece of ID that you need to attach to every single social media platform that you own. What is that? The same thing as a digital ID. You want the government to accept you as a citizen, you need to attach your credentials to something that they create, like your medical records, for example, because medical records are now electronic, and they have been for a very long time. So a digital ID in itself is not that big of a problem if you don't explore what comes next. It's a transitional state. Well, the digital ID, the next step is biometrics. And if you look at, what was the company? I wrote it down. I think you talked about it in your post. There's a company, there's a website that you linked in your post, and they believe in biometrics for digital ID. And in the framework that Canada has right now, they speak about biometrics. That one of the reasons why they want digital ID is to be able to attach the biometrics to it. And this is where people like Whitney Webb talks about it and how dangerous it is, because now you have a digital ID that is attached to biometrics. What is biometrics? It could be your fingerprints, could be your DNA, could be facial recognition, it could be your iris, it could be anything that identifies who you are. Now that is attached to an ID. We have cameras all over the place. And during COVID, this is something that people don't understand, but during COVID, I was still working for one of the biggest telecommunication companies in Canada. You know what they did during COVID when everybody was locked up? They built a shit ton of 5G towers all over the place. And I'm not going to talk about the vaccine and all that shit. Forget that part. The reason they built so many 5G towers is that if you look at 5G compared to 4G, the field that it creates in order to be reachable, you know, you look at your cell phone, oh, I don't have any bars. That field, the way that you reach the tower on 4G is wider, longer, but the throughput is not as high. Yeah. There's what we call latency. The time that it takes from information to go to point A from point A to point B takes longer. Under 5G, that field is smaller, but the throughput is so much higher. It is what we call real-time technology. So now we have cameras that are wireless. We have everything that are wireless all over the place. So implementing a digital ID that has biometrics, you can then track people just like they're doing in China. And this is the reality.
I think it all stems to go back to the carbon footprint. So they're going to be 100%. Able to. Yes, that's what it's all about. So they put your digital control. ID, and then this is how much carbon you're allowed today. Mm-hmm. And what terrifies me is when I said, okay, well, how much carbon? how much carbon is allocated to you? And then I'm like, what? I could only have a fraction of a piece of steak today. When I looked at what they said for each person, the amount I think is 25 grams of meat. I don't know what it is, but it's something like a small rock of meat. And that's it.
But this is just one of the examples that they're going to control you on. But look at what happened in Vietnam. I don't know if you heard about that, but a few months ago, Vietnam went 80 million Vietnamese were debanked for not accepting the digital ID. What happened during the Freedom Convoy? We got donors and people that were part of the Freedom Convoy that got their bank account frozen. And that was unconstitutional, yet banks went with it. So you don't need to look very far to see that our government is ready to debank people if you are creating a problem. So digital ID no, but hold on. All I have to say, digital ID is going to be attached to biometrics so that you can be tracked all over the place. And then your financial are going to be attached to it so that they can debank you or control you. All in the sake of being simple.
I have a question. This the convoy, how did they get the crypto? That's what I've always wondered. I'm still questioning how they were able to confiscate and get the crypto. And I believe it was Bitcoin, $5 million of the Bitcoin. I don't know what the number is, but I know they froze the crypto. I thought crypto was untouchable, but I was actually, before I was like, oh, I'm going to buy all this crypto. And then after that, I'm like, oh, wow. I've always questioned it after that, because I'm like, how did the government freeze the cryptocurrency?
It was supposed to be what we call decentralized, where nobody knows who owns crypto, who the owner of certain cryptos are. But there are people out there that believe, and I have no proof for what I'm saying, I'm just going from theories that are out there that would explain why it happened, is because it is not decentralized. That the crypto was put in place in order to sell the idea of crypto. Because if you look at the next step of finance or economies is to have BDBCs, to have banks that are solely online that will use some type of crypto. So who knows? There's people out there that believe that the only reason we have crypto right now is to get us used to crypto so that we're ready to use it. But if they were able to confiscate it, that means that it's not decentralized, that there is a way to know who owns Bitcoins, for example. Because how else would they have been able to freeze Bitcoins if they were indeed 100% decentralized?
No, I know.
That's just common sense, right?
But the thing is that we never heard anything after that. When I heard that the cryptocurrency was frozen, we didn't hear like anybody go and dig into that, going, how is that even possible? No one even talked about that after that. I'm still wondering how that's possible. So to me, it seems like crypto, it's sold as something safe, but the government could freeze it. I don't know.
It's very easy to go down rabbit holes when you just use common sense and you're ready to just critique whatever you believe. If the only way that the government could have froze crypto, Bitcoin, for example, is if there's a way to identify who owns them, that it's not decentralized like we were told it was. So it's just common sense.
Hey, Nico, I want to give back to the people watching the show. Is there any good questions we could touch on?
Oh, there's a lot of questions, man. There's one I need to address. Mr. Stu here. Hi, Nico / Marc. We live in a dictatorship run by a minority government. Pain, that's the only thing we will see change. Yeah, and I agree. That's the only thing that will bring more change. That's what I was saying earlier. We're not hurting enough for people to realize, want to admit
the level. We're already at 25% of the population that could barely afford to eat food. Like, what's the level of pain we need to get to in order for change? That's my question. I have no idea what that looks like, but what's the level? 50%? Everybody's...
You know what I think is going to be? And again, this is speculative at this point. I have no proof because I can't see the future. But I think people will start to wake up when they see their loved ones being arrested for tweets that they make online, similar to what you're starting to see in the UK.
Yeah, but nothing like Oh no, actually, I think yesterday they brought there was a protest in the UK with farm equipment. They brought it in. I'm not too
Yeah,
sure if you saw that.
yeah. It's always somehow related to Tommy Robinson, but the farmers are going to complain, of course, but we're not hurting enough right now. And I don't know what the magic number. There's no history doesn't provide us with magic numbers. Just history provides us with the fact that human beings have a very short memory, and it's hard for us to be convinced that something is happening unless it really affects us directly, and that's the problem.
I'm afraid that if they get Bill C2, Bill C8, Bill C9, and all these bills, if they get all these bills approved, it doesn't matter how much pain that we're facing. They'll just delete people that speak up. That's the problem. Or jailed or whatever.
This is what I'm saying. This is why I'm thinking that digital IDs are the line in the sand, because if we do not have freedom in a sense where a government can deplatform us, no matter that it's medically, financially, they can literally turn us off, similar to what we saw in Enemy of the State with Will Smith back in the 90s, we're done. Because with technology, AI is what's changing the game. If you're familiar with Palantir, the type of software that uses AI to run through so much information and make sense of it and use it to track people or potentially track people is fucking dangerous, but the technology is there. So I don't, there unfortunately, man, there's no answer to your question as in by 7 months from now, people are going to wake up. They're going to need to hurt more. But, you know, at the end of the day, man, the expression says that you can vote communism in, but you can't vote it out. You're going to need to fight it out. And I don't see any difference here. As much as I don't prone violence, I don't want to tell people to be violent by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know, man. It's unfortunate that we don't learn from history, because throughout history this has happened many, 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 many times before, but never to a point where it was worldwide all at the same time, because everything that we're talking about here is happening in the Western world. It's happening all over Europe. It's happening in Australia. It's happening here. Man, I was
hoping AI was going to save us. That was what I was hoping for. I said, you know, this AI thing could save the world. What we do, like I've already heard, is like train the AI to be civil and fair and be able to assist in making this world a better place. You know,
it has the potential of doing it, but unfortunately, the people that control it don't want that. It's all about control.
Yeah, luckily there's people out there like you, Nico, and obviously myself and other people, because I do feel like sharing the information right now at this crucial moment is important, you know, and we're putting our faces out there. We're putting our life on the line to educate Canadians. So thank you for all the stuff you do. Man. Yeah.
That's all I can do, man. It's a God thing, brother. Believe me, my life was a lot easier before I did this. I didn't have to worry about this stuff. So,
well, that's why I say, I mean, people that are watching don't realize the amount of sacrifice that is required in order to do what you do. So I appreciate you. I know you're working hard every single day you show up, and that's why at the beginning I told you, I said I like you. I want to come on the show.
Yeah, man, and I appreciate you too for taking it and not being insulted by what I said in that video, but that's the perfect way to finish this. That was my intention. At the end of the day, all I want is to create that conversation with other people that have big platforms out there to educate or inform. I don't like the word educate, but to put that information out there so that Canadians can maybe learn something and start asking the right questions. Because I don't really care if people believe me or not. At the end of the day, if I can trigger you to try to prove me wrong, if that's what it takes, I'm very happy, because critical thinking is all intelligence, is being able to critically look at your beliefs and say, I might be wrong. Be curious and have critical thinking, the two main things that they don't teach us in school anymore.
Be curious. I like that. Curious is most important. Yep. Find out as much as you can. I'm learning every day, and that's what I'm excited to wake up. And I mean, I'm far from right on everything, but I'm very curious to find out more. So that's something I'm going to keep doing for sure.
Well, thanks, man. We're bang on an hour. Thanks for taking the time on your Friday afternoon. I know that you're gonna spend the rest of your day with your kids, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna go spend the rest of my day with my kid and wife. So thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being here. And man, I don't know if you have something you want to say to the people out there.
You know what? I mean, hopefully you learn a few things. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. The key is that we're still able to communicate with each other. And that's most important. And that's why I keep showing up every single day. That's also why I thanked you, Nico, for all the work that you're doing. We just need to continue to spread the word. And to be honest with you, if you look at CBC numbers, they're nothing compared to independent media now has exploded across the country. They know this. That's why they're pushing so hard on these bills, because they're like, these independent journalists, and I don't call myself a journalist. I'm just a content creator. They're a threat. And we're a threat because we're able to share the information with everybody. And we're going to keep doing it as long as we can. At least I will. And so I want to thank everybody for watching the show. Share the show. Follow me on X. Follow me on YouTube, Instagram, wherever I am. You just need to find one, and then you could find all of the links, and maybe Nico will also share them in the description section. And yeah, and share the content. And have a wonderful weekend. And have a wonderful weekend.
Yep, 100%. So thanks for all the listeners. Thanks for the commenters. Thanks for always being there. And we will see you tomorrow. We have a Saturday night mashup from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. tomorrow. We're going to be talking about radical Islam. So that is something that you do not want to miss. But until then, enjoy your Friday, and I will see you guys tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Peace.
Thanks for having me, Nico.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here, man.